Welcome back. So you might recognize this Yamaha XJ550 4V8 to be precise. I've took it for a couple of spins now and I think I noticed the clutch slipping. You gotta be in the higher RPM for this thing to actually deliver some amount of power. So you end up shifting gears and going basically full throttle right after you engage the clutch, and the RPMs just sometimes shoot up to, let's say, 2,500 above where they should be, and then they come down slowly to where they should be. So that gives me the hint that the clutch is slipping and just can't transmit the amount of torque needed in that moment. So I will start by getting some amount of the oil out of it. Let's see how bad it is. Oh no, let's not see because there's still some in there. More? No. So here we have the clutch. It consists of the basket, a carrier, and these are connected by the friction discs and steel discs which are in here. They are pressed onto one another by the springs which are preloaded in here. The friction between the steel and the friction discs is the only thing that keeps both of them spinning. So the outer one is driven and the friction between the two types of discs make the inner one spin as well. When you squeeze the clutch on top, you basically pull out this rod and that pulls against the springs and relieves tension from the discs and make them slip. So reasons for a slipping clutch could be weak or broken springs. They have to have a minimum length, so over time they shorten because they are under constant tension, and at some point if they are too short they can't put enough pressure on the plates to actually get them to stick. Other reasons could be worn out friction discs or worn out steel discs. There are specs for those too in your handbook because, you know, something. So I think I'm gonna take the springs out. I hope that then I can get the discs out and we'll take them over to the bench and take some measurements. So let's see. Oh yeah. So that's basically the clutch removed and the output spinning and input is connected to the engine. So that's the drawbar with like a thrust bearing, needle thrust bearing. I hope you can see this because, no you can't. You have steels, friction discs and the springs. I have a book to my side. The springs should be 41.2 mil long and we are at 41.3 actually, so let's just call it alright. It's 41.2. Gonna use a micrometer. One take, right? One take. So it's been a couple of days. I measured the steel plates, the friction plates, friction rings and the springs. The steels measure out to about 1.55, well in the high end of the tolerance. Same with the friction plates. They are pretty much bang on 3 millimeters, which is what they are issued with. So standard size, basically no wear on them. The springs are mostly okay. These three are in the middle of their tolerance. These two are totally fine. So I don't really see a reason why this was slipping. So now what do I do? I made the plan that I don't want to put this back together as it is. The steels, I really don't see any reason to replace them. They're as good as new, basically. The frictions, I don't trust these 100%. For the dimensions, they're as good as new. But when it comes to maybe it has been slipping, these are probably the first ones to go. It could be that there has been something in the oil that has been in there as I got the machine. It has been standing for 15 years, so, or 20 years. Maybe something happened to the material itself. I don't know, so I'm gonna replace these. Also, I'm gonna replace the springs. I just don't feel good putting these back in. Also, the clutch tension is really low with these, in my opinion. These are about 10% stronger than the original, which I suspect these are. So I've gone ahead and soaked the new clutch discs, or rings, whatever you want to call them, in motor oil, the same stuff that goes actually in the bike, overnight. It's what I heard you are supposed to do. I've read it sometimes, so now before assembling, I'm going to take a quick look, or I already have, but I want to direct your attention to the clutch basket. In here you should be able to see some shiny spots on the inside of this edge. This is where the lugs of the friction discs hit or contact, but they can wear into this material and create like little notches in here, which leads to basically a grabby or clunky clutch. To some degree you can file these out and make them smooth again. Same actually can happen to the inside, to the hub. Actually there are some marks in here. That's no big deal. I think that is from this tensioner or preload spring, basically a wavy washer. Now we just stack up these one after another. These notches in them. I think these are for oil pickup. So this clutch sits in oil to about here, and every time these come around, these pick up a little bit of oil and get in between the steel plates and the friction discs. This is messy. So now the preload, this should fit inside of here somehow, maybe. So that is there. This one goes here. Will they ever make contact? They won't. This, what I call the preload ring or whatever, it's basically a wavy washer spring, and it has been mounted right up in here between one of the steel and friction rings. I actually thought that it would fit right in between or inside one of the friction rings, but it doesn't. That doesn't make any sense to me. I wonder if the clutch pack that was in here also was an aftermarket or replacement, where the ID of the frictions, just as this one, is a little bit smaller than maybe the OEM parts. So it worked right with the OEM friction rings, it doesn't with aftermarket. Maybe that is what happened. Maybe that is why my clutch felt kind of iffy. I'm not gonna put that in there, and if this video ends without me putting it back in, it is probably the way to go. We will see. This can get wedged in at one point here, and then the friction disc, friction ring, which is connected to the outer basket, starts to transmit force to the inner hub, which might be the cause of the little imperfections I found on the inner ring or the inner hub. We have a hole in here which has to line up with one on the hub. So this one goes on like like this. And the teeth in here can engage on the ones on the hub. The springs in here, the new ones, and they talk to 10 Newton meters. Put the cover back on. This arm here is supposed to line up with this window here when you press it, when you press the lever forward by hand. This doesn't quite. You can take this clip ring off and adjust the arm. Honestly, that's a pain in the ass with the spring down here. Maybe later, maybe not. Close enough, I think. Adjusted the cable so I have about 3 to 5 mil slack up at the clutch lever. And yeah, I'm gonna fill up with oil, or basically do an oil change, more or less. That's it. So, thanks for hanging out. Hope you kinda like that. See ya.